Stop me if you've heard this before, but Saturday is all about Payton Thorne.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We're dapping it up with Montgomery radio legend, the Darrell Dapprich. We'll talk about some players we want to see have a larger role this Saturday when Cal comes to town, as well as, okay, did winning by 70 alter expectations for this weekend too much? But first things first, and Darrell, you and I chatted about this when we were reacting to the game over the weekend. But it's like, if you're Cal, how do you defend Auburn's offense that just erupted for 70-plus points? They threw the ball to virtually anybody they wanted to, whenever they wanted to, wherever they wanted to. But if you're Cal and you're preparing for this team, to me, you still have to focus on stopping the run first. It's what they did a year ago. I'm predicting that's what they're going to do Saturday, and they're still going to say, hey, Payton Thorne, it's great that you did that against Alabama A&M, but we're going to make you beat us.
Absolutely. You know, I talked about it a little bit in the post-game reaction, and I guess I was euphoric about the passing game and thought that other people would come along. I don't think Cal's sold. I don't. I think Cal is going to look at that film and go, yeah, they're better than last year. They have better receivers, but they're going to look at the opponent and they're going to say, we still need to stop the run to have a chance to beat Auburn. I don't think nothing that happened last Saturday, will change and dictate what Cal tries to do on defense this coming Saturday.
I don't think it can, because if you're Cal and you decide that you're going to play a few guys back, or you may have more defensive backs on the field than you normally do or whatever, if you're going to be in a dime and only have one linebacker on the field, I just don't see how there's any way you stop Auburn with what we think they can do running the ball with Jarquez Hunter. I mean, Jarquez Hunter only got a handful of touches, and he made the most of those touches. No question about it. And I just think it's more acceptable also, if you're Cal, to get beat through the air in this situation than just to like give up 6-yard run after 6-yard run after 6-yard run. To me, I think you're going to have to stop the run if you're Cal. It's just so interesting because whatever we saw on Saturday, it was fun. But like, as far as what the actual offensive game plan for Saturday is going to look like for Auburn, I don't think we really saw anything.
No, I think Cal is going to say, look, we've got to let Payton Thorne beat us. We didn't see a fully functional Jarquez Hunter last year when we played Auburn. He was just coming off a 1-game suspension, and he's not the Jarquez Hunter he was later in the year.
Right.
So that they have to understand that reality. They've got a really good lockdown corner in Harris that they feel comfortable with. So they might be able to say, okay, we're going to put him on Auburn's best receiver. But this is
that KLS? If you're Cal and you're trying to stop Auburn, do you put Harris on KLS?
That's what I think they'll do. So what does that mean? That means that Perry Thompson or Cam Coleman or Robert Lewis is not going to have their best shutdown corner on them, which, I mean, look, this is the perfect scenario for Auburn to finally set something and put something on tape that says, okay, you're a Power 5 football team that wants to just sell out to stop the run and thinks we can't throw it anymore and wants to shut down our best receiver, thereby leaving other guys, on your less than best. This is the opportunity for Auburn to show that, put it on tape, and let the rest of the conference take notice. This is a different Auburn.
Yeah, which it's Marcus Harris, which is funny. But he played a ton of, he played 80 snaps against UC Davis. The leading Auburn player played 42, I think, this past week. So Auburn should be well rested, and Cal has to travel. There's a lot of things pointing Auburn's direction here that are favorable. But he played 64 snaps at wide corner, and 61 were on the left side, 3 were on the right. So it's not like they moved them a ton. And so I do wonder, like, is Auburn going to be able to manipulate the matchups that they want if that's the type of defense that Cal plays, if they keep their corners based off of a side, not field and boundary. So that's worth noticing. He wears number 5 for what that's worth.
Yeah, I think this is where it gets really interesting, because if this is the poison that they're picking, and this is where they feel comfortable from a game plan standpoint,
then
go back and look. And something that we mentioned in the post game, UC Davis threw for 221 yards on that.
Mm-hmm.
So if they feel that confident in their pass defense that they can hold up by selling out to stop the run, and the pass defense daring us to throw can hold up, is that a sound strategy when you gave up 221 to UC Davis? I mean, are you telling me by default that Auburn can't throw for a lot more yards than that because of the receivers and who Auburn is with big boy football? That's the interesting dilemma they're in, because reality is going to set in if they gave up 221 against UC Davis and some of Auburn's nicks gets these guys open schematically, route trees look different, then it's going to be very difficult. What's going to happen at that point? Let's say Thorne comes out and throws for 150 in the first half. Okay, so what are they going to do? Are they going to go at halftime and Wilcox is going to go, we need to adjust, Thorne's killing us?
What's the rushing game look like?
Let's say
if Thorne throws for $150 in the first half, what are Auburn's total rushing yards?
Let's say Auburn's, because he throws for 150, has a modest 75 at halftime. What's going to happen? They're going to go, oh, we're happy with that. They've only rushed for 75 yards, but my goodness, they've thrown for 100.
Well, there's some context. Like, is the score 17-0? Because then it's like, no, we're not going to change because they're going to start running the ball more. If it's close, yeah, you might see them back off a little bit.
And if they back off, look out. I'm just telling you.
Here comes Jarquez.
Yeah, I'm not trying to show hyperbole here, but those 3 dudes will eat in the second. If Payton Thorne sets the tone and they go, holy crap, these receivers and Payton Thorne are killing us in the first half, we need to change schematically, because they'll have to. They'll have to. You cannot continue. If Payton Thorne goes 14 of 17 for 160 yards in the first half and 2 touchdowns, you better change. And if they do, then the running game. I mean, that's the dilemma that they're facing right now, because I don't believe, and I'll say it again, I don't believe they are believers in Auburn's passing game yet. But by 3:45 Saturday afternoon, by God, they might be.
They might be. They may have to be.
They may have a religious conversion experience by 3:45 and say, "Oh, we were wrong. They are different."
Oh, Auburn's offense is different than a year ago. This isn't the same team we saw a year ago.
Nope.
Are expectations too high for Auburn this weekend because of what happened against Alabama A&M? I say no. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. Right here on Locked On Auburn. Darrell, today's show is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home a championship. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. It's the most cost-effective way to take care of your vehicle, and it's not even close.
No, what did I text you last Friday? I said, here we go. I've got to use them. I had a little incident where I have a scratch on a plastic piece on a fender. I looked it up on the normal websites, and it was $135 cheaper with eBay Motors.
$135 cheaper?
Yes, it was.
I thought you were saying it was only $135. I didn't read that full text.
Well, it was $135 cheaper, and you're very close. It was $165 on eBay Motors, and other places it was $3.
It's pretty substantial, folks. That's pretty substantial. So head over to ebaymotors.com, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit. Only available to U.S. customers. We're also proud to say that this episode is brought to you by our friends at Alumni Hall. Can you imagine buying Auburn gear anywhere other than Alumni Hall? Darrell, where do you think I got this hat? Where do you think I got it? I got it from Alumni Hall. 100%. 100%. It's the best place for anything Auburn, whether it's swag or something you want to wear to the game, jersey, hoodies, sweatshirts, whatever it is, they've got you covered.
And I love the flexibility. Go online and look at their just tremendous product selection.
AlumniHall.com.
or walk into one of the stores they have that are so much fun and so nice to browse. You have two options. It's beautiful.
Yep. There's one in Auburn, there's one in Opelika, there's one in Huntsville. So be sure to check that out, alumnihall.com, or their 3 physical locations. I can't imagine buying Auburn gear anywhere else. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. For your second listen, I could try Locked On SEC. Locked On ACC is talking a lot about Cal this week. So yeah, you got plenty of options throughout the Locked On Podcast Network. The everydayers know this good and well. I think the expectations, because look, nationally, throughout conference media, and then even Auburn media, everybody's saying, hey, Auburn is going to cover. FanDuel's got it at 13.5 points in Auburn's favor right now. And the general consensus is Auburn should cover that. And I agree. And so many people are saying, okay, well, yeah, they scored 73 on Alabama A&M. Like, there's a lot of excitement. I don't feel that way because of what Auburn did. I feel like Auburn is going to dominate this game because what Cal didn't do against UC Davis. To me, I think Cal's poor performance against UC Davis last week is more telling about this Saturday's game than what Auburn did against Alabama A&M.
Yeah, I looked at this when you first said expectations too high. I thought after a victory like that last Saturday, are people's expectations too high for what Auburn can achieve this season?
Yeah.
I would say, yes, it is. I saw some people kind of get a little bit unrealistic.
Oh, the boog is strong. No question.
For Cal, you make an excellent point. I think it's exactly that. It's what they looked like against UC Davis, and let's not underestimate the unknown factor of how healthy Ott will be or not.
Yeah.
Jaden Ott is their best player. He left with an ankle injury, noticeably limping, leaving the stadium Saturday. We don't know what his status is. Okay, so let's assume he does play. If he's not 100% against that Auburn defense, it's going to be, especially the speed I saw side to side, it's going to be difficult. So I think you
think about this game a year ago when Jarquez Hunter was back, but apparently not 100% healthy. I mean, I think it's a similar parallel. If that's the situation with Ott, which is an ankle, and sometimes there's just nothing you can do but let, Father Time heal the thing. It's a tricky spot.
For him to have an impact on Saturday's game, I feel like he's going to have to be completely healthy.
Yeah.
I think Ott's going to have one of those games where he goes for like $150 because the quarterback, he threw a couple interceptions. Again, I don't know what that's going to look like. I do agree with you, though, that it's what Cal didn't do, not so much what Auburn did do, considering the opponent, but what Cal didn't do against their lesser than opponent. Is that a case of, they worked on Auburn all week? They're looking past UC Davis to come travel across the country to play Auburn. Who knows? But I know that they better have a completely healthy Ott, and that quarterback better make better decisions. Or, the expectations aren't too. I have Auburn covering. I fully feel very comfortable whether the number was 12, whether it was 13. I have Auburn covering. I think Auburn wins this game comfortably.
If it was 16.5, so you're talking 3 scores, would you have Auburn covering?
Yes.
I think I would too.
Barely when I tell you my score.
Got it. But that's kind of where we're thinking. Like low 3 scores is kind of where you're at.
I am.
I think that's where I'm at too. And it could get worse if the game flow is what I think it's going to be. And I think Auburn's going to get up early. And I think we're going to kind of hover in this situation where Cal's not going to want to go away quite yet, because I do think Cal's going to be able to score. I'm more concerned about Auburn's defense on Saturday than Auburn's offense as far as matchups go. There were a few things I saw on Saturday, and yes, I know Alabama A&M scored 3 points, but there were situations where, like, Kieron Crawford, I'm going to talk more about him in the next segment, but like Kieron Crawford, like, I need to see more out of him. He can't lose containment against Cal, or it could open up some bigger issues. And then there were also times where if Alabama A&M had if they would have caught the football early on, like, they would have had longer drives. They wouldn't have had to get off the field. And, like, they were open. Like, Auburn did not cover particularly well in the first half, in my opinion. So those are questions that I do want to see get answered, because I still have them about Auburn's defense. I think they'll get fixed. I think there's going to be a lot of difference as far as, what DJ Durkin's going to do defensively. But I do think Auburn eventually runs away with this one when all 4 quarters are done. And I do think all 4 quarters will be 15 minutes, which will be a nice change.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to think that if Cal had a 1st and goal at the 1, they score. Alabama A&M did not. And then they missed a chip. They had a procedure penalty, and then they missed a 29-yard field goal. Cal scores 1st and goal from the 1. Now, they got down there early on a fluke play. J.C. Hart had the interception and went through his hands, and the guy caught it behind him. There was not only some drops, there were some balls thrown behind wide open receivers too. So I get all that. Very, very valid points. But were those because of what Hugh Freeze mentioned in the press conference, that they're going to get corrected? He lost his mind over, and so did Durkin and Kelly, and that's the misalignments. Yeah. Is that why they had guys? The lack of communication? You can get that corrected. You can get that fixed. And if that gets fixed, then you could probably see tighter coverages.
Yeah, and it's not like Cal was crispy clean either. They always say, I don't know if it's you that said it earlier in the week or somebody else, but the biggest step of improvement in the season is usually from week 1 to week 2. And so what does Cal do to get better without their best player potentially being 100%? And what does Auburn do to get better? And I think Auburn's path to getting better is easier because I think their roster is better and I think their coaches are better. But you could say the same thing about like what Cal did in the first half, where they were just leaving UC Davis's pass catchers wide open. Like they just weren't anywhere near them. But that could have been an alignment issue or a communication issue. Like we don't know. Like there's only so much you can get from watching the games. So they could clean that up, and this could be a much more difficult situation. But to me, just the matchups. Every matchup points in favor to Auburn to me.
It does. And I guess the flip side of that is if we were able to get into the minds of, well, the Auburn coaches, what's your take on what you think they are going to try to stop first? I think it's a no-brainer. If Ott plays, Auburn's like, we can't let Ott beat us. They are going to scheme to shut down the run, period.
Even if he doesn't, Darrell, I think you still put pressure on the quarterback because I don't think he's great. Fernando Mendoza, like I think he's fine. But to me, like you got to make him uncomfortable. And so I think you do that by putting guys at the line of scrimmage and saying, hey, we don't know who's coming, but it's going to be somebody. And if you don't block them all, you're going to get lit up. I think that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Auburn's going to have some tremendous opportunities to get some good sack totals Saturday as well, especially if the running game is like not an option or it's severely hampered, and Auburn can pin their ears back and say, I'm just disregarding the run. It ain't happening without their best player. We're going to sell out now and come at the quarterback. It could get interesting. You could see some turnovers, get some picks and that kind of thing going on.
I want to throw this out there. Assuming Ott plays and plays a lot and is part of this game, watch him in pass pro. I don't think that's where he's his best.
Well, he's not going to be his best on a weak ankle either. It's very difficult. You can get run over really quick if you can't plant and have that stability. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, that's a matchup where it's like, okay, if it's a Keldrick Falk that, comes off the edge, or if it's a blitzing linebacker like Eugene Asante or something, watch that on a third down situation. That's a certain situation I'm looking at. That I think that's the weakness of Ott's game. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. I think Kieron Crawford needs to have a larger role on Saturday. We'll discuss that in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel's America's #1 sports book. We talk about FanDuel's line right now. It's 13.5. Auburn minus 13.5. Right now, Darrell and I are both taking the points. FanDuel's got something a little different for you now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So that's with YouTube TV's base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account in a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sports book. Kieran Crawford, to me, Darrell, has to have a larger role. I think he's going to get more snaps just because of the nature of the starters are going to play more. But I want to see him be more effective in rushing the passer. And I want to see him more disciplined in setting the edge and keeping containment on a more consistent basis.
I agree. I mean, I had him getting the first sack, and it was McLeod, which you got right when we were talking about that. I thought he was going to have.
You got everything else right, though.
I thought he was going to have a lot better game, and maybe it's just getting acclimated, and now one game under his belt, clean up some stuff. Totally agree.
Yeah.
If he does that and has a larger role and has a significantly better game, that's going to just really bode well in addition for that Auburn defense. I think that makes it, again, what are you going to do? You got McLeod, you got Falk, that would speak volumes, and I think it would be a long day for Cal if he goes off.
Yeah, another one is Amaris Williams, who he was second most in as far as snaps played in the entire team on Saturday. And I made the comments like he played this much and I didn't notice him.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not ideal. So I want to see Amaris Williams play not the second most snaps on the team, but when he does play, I want him to say, yes, I'm in the game and you will notice me. That's what I want to see from Amaris. Make a statement as a true freshman in the biggest game of your career so far. It's only been 2, but still, like I think Amaris, that's a guy that on the defensive front, I'm wanting a little bit more from.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. There's a couple of guys that went back at the end of the game defensively and said, did they get in the game? Did they play? And I had to look because Auburn didn't give them stats, but they did get in and get some snaps. That was a little bit concerning that showed a little bit of a cloak of invisibility that can't happen with Crawford more than Williams. I'm okay with Williams coming in, like you said, playing less snaps, but the snaps he does get in, you notice him.
Yeah,
but
right.
Crawford more than anything else. From an offensive side of the ball, I think Fairweather needs to have a larger role. I want to see him do more. I want to see him do more Saturday. We know that he had his coming out party. People always want to go back to the catch that he got from Thorne in the end zone. That was the game sealer. Go back to the one that he got them 30 yards downfield where he's falling on his butt and is shielding and makes a heck of a play. That play was huge.
He drew a pass interference as well, didn't he?
He sure did.
Yeah.
He sure did. So I'm looking for him to have a larger role unless, again, Cal falls into that trap and goes, he beat us last year. We're taking him away. We're not letting him. We are taking Fairweather. We're going to double him or we're going to do whatever. We're going to put a defensive back on him instead of a linebacker.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Please.
Do that this year.
And I understand, like, there's no disrespect to Rivaldo Fairweather. And we've talked about how, like, Auburn adding all of these guys on the outside. Rivaldo is a true winner this offseason. We did that show already. But if you're a defense and you look at Auburn's offense and you say, the guy we got to take away is Rivaldo, you're done. Like, Auburn will beat you.
If they base it upon who hurt them most last year,
yeah,
and that recency bias, they may do that. Now, again, at 2:45 p.m., that strategy will change if they do that Saturday when you've dropped Coleman and Thompson and KLS on your head for a couple of long big games. That strategy will change quicker than the stop the run strategy will. But they may come out in something like that, Zach, and put a safety at the line of scrimmage on Fairweather, which is one less safety, guess what, over the top downfield when you're running KLS and Coleman backside. That's one-on-one.
Well, if it's an extra safety, though, like, run it down their throat.
Absolutely.
If that's how they choose to treat, the tight end on Saturday. So we'll see exactly what that looks like. But man, just I just don't see it, Darrell. And I could be totally wrong. And after this game, I'm like, all right, Auburn won, but like it was a lot closer than I thought. I just don't see how that would be the case unless Payton just really has a bad day. And I don't know. I don't know if that happens or not.
Well, here's why it could be early is Justin Wilcox is a defensive-minded coach, was a defensive coordinator. For those that have coached with him, he is very stubborn when it comes to his schemes, his way, what he thinks is going to be basically what he's going to use from a defensive format. So being that way and not being apt to change much, he may stay in that a little bit longer than most head coaches would because of his defensive background, if that makes sense. We'll see, but that's how he is, man. He is rigid. He's a very bright defensive mind, was an excellent defensive coordinator, but he's been there and he's a defensive-minded coach. He may stay with that a little bit longer than an offensive coach that relies on a defensive coordinator and defers to him. Yes.
Yeah. You alluded to your score. Do you want to give that today or you want to wait till Friday?
I'm going to do it now because I'll stick with it. I think Auburn wins 31-14. Again, numbers stay in my head like Rain Man, and I just think that's what I can see a 31-14 game, and it's going to feel like, excuse me, Auburn is in control of the football game at halftime.
31-14 would be incredible. I think that'd be a really, really strong win. Then you play New Mexico, and then you get ready for the season against Arkansas. So I'm all for that. I would take that in a heartbeat. I think there's a chance Auburn scores more than 31, though. I think there's a real chance of that. So we'll see. We'll see how Cal defends the Tigers on Saturday. Darrell, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Follow me on X, Dap6410, Instagram, Darrell Dap, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sunday mornings with you, my friend.
Yes. And please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.